What's up, guys? Welcome back to Wrenching Wrecked. John here. Here's kind of where we sit. I'm gonna go over a bunch of stuff, and then the next time you see this whole thing's gonna be blasted apart once again. So, where do I start? Did the rocker box gasket on here for the rear that's leaking like a sieve. Still leaking like a sieve. Pouring oil. All of the oil that's pulled up down there that hopefully shows up in the reflection, that was cleaned up already. And now it's back. So, we got new hats. I'm working on setting up a store through YouTube for the Wrenching Wrecked shirts, the Monster Wrenching Wrecked shirts, some of the JTS Coatings Powder Cutting Shop shirts, and hats. So as soon as I get all that solidified, I will let you know. If you're interested in any of the stuff, I think I've shown them in past videos. Not in a while, but it's been a minute since we got around to those. If you're interested in any of the merch stuff that I do have, I got two shirt designs for Wrenching Wrecked, and then one or two of the JTS Coatings and Cycles shirts, all of which will end up in the store as soon as I'm done getting pictures and doing all that stuff. It's a pain. I hate doing the internet stuff. I'd rather be out here tinkering, and this takes precedence at this point in time. So if you're interested, shoot me something in the comments. I'll let you know how to get a hold of me, and we can figure that out. If not, that's cool too. Anyways, rebuilt the top end of this motor, and realistically, I am about 1 week behind real life on these videos. So tons of comments, tons of input, tons of thoughts on what to do. By the time I read them, I'm about 3 days, a week on some, typically some of the shorter ones, I'm about 2-3 days. So by the time the videos post, real life time, it's 2 days ahead. So when I say, let me know in the comments, I'll read them, I'll see them, but I'm probably already done putting things back together, unfortunately, for better or for worse. But I'm excited about this bike, so I'm trying to jam away on this, and it's Midwest. We're running out of time for riding season. Testing this, we got snow on Halloween. It all melted. It's 65 degrees outside right now. You never know what you're gonna get. So there's that on a couple different fronts, odds and ends updates. Now, specifically on this bike, new pistons, brand new rings, retimed the mag. Here's kind of what I'm thinking. I got the carburetor off again. I'm gonna drop the bowl and just double check that everything's cleared up on this. But I also have another Mikuni VM. So I'm gonna interject the clip that I just took at the shop. It's on a phone, so don't mind the audio. But I just explained everything on that one. I'm at the shop today on the phone because I didn't bring anything with. But over the weekend, the carb that's on the chopper is still on the chopper. Well, it's off the chopper, but it's still at the garage. That one we cleaned up. I had that extra VM on the workbench. So this is the one that was completely locked up and seized. Slide was stuck in there. Couldn't get it out. So I dropped the entire assembly in the carb dip, let it sit overnight. The slide started freeing up a little bit. I pulled the bowl off, yanked the main jets, and so basically stripped everything down to the bare body except for that little fuel line that's on top of the brass fitting. But everything else is completely apart on this. And the atomizer tube is stuck. So that one's still in there. This is gonna go back in the chemicals. Right now, bolt is done and cleaned. Now this carb is actually slightly different than the Mikuni that we have on that one. This one has the idle speed and the idle mixture screw on the same side. On the current bike that's on there, the idle mix is on the back side, so it would be on the right side. If it's sitting on the bike like this, motor is where my head is at. The mixture screw is, let me think here. If I'm looking down on the bike, this one is proper. It's got the mixture, it's got the idle speed on the same side. On the one at the house, it's opposite, so we're gonna strip this one down. The internals of this are definitely different. On the bigger one, I got it apart, so we'll go through that and I'll do a detail on what's what on the inside of that one. It looked like that one had a bleed through on the atomizer. This is a solid what is it, primary or something? I don't remember the exact terms. One has holes in the side, one doesn't. This is the standard one. So these two will soak, and then we're gonna go through and we might be flip-flopping carbs at a later date. So quick little update. I'll show you more of that when we get back to the house with the actual camera and the mic. But typically most of the Mikunis, which this is, most of the Mikuni VM or the old Sudco setups or whoever makes the VM swaps will have your idle mix screw and then your idle speed on the same side. This one's different. So I think this was probably taken off of a different thing and applied to this. Realistically, carb-wise, they're pretty much the same. There's not too much of a difference there, but I will show you the one that I just tore apart. It's sitting in the carb cleaner right now at the shop. That'll be there for the next day or two till that's all cleared up, and then I can kind of mix and match parts. I'm trying to free up the atomizer that's locked in the tube. When I rebuilt this, I pulled out that other carb that still had the throttle and the grip on it that was sitting over on the corner of that bench over by those white boxes. We use that for a quick reference. That's the carb that I got freed up from soaking. So gonna go through that one and get both of these carbs kind of dialed and build one out of the two, but I'd like to maybe run the other one just because I know that's most of the Mikunis that I see on ironheads are set up with that other one. They definitely have different atomizers. I'm not sure what the names are. Bleed through and primary. This one is a bleed through. It's got the holes in the side of it. The other one is one of the primaries where it's a solid tube. I'm guessing based on the looks. We'll figure out how that works. There's that. I've been jamming away on this like crazy. I didn't work on anything yesterday. I took a day and edited a bunch of videos, relaxed. We took the Super Glide out. We were supposed to take the chopper, but this was backed in right here on this corner and the easiest bike to get out of the garage. So we took the Super Glide. Hopefully by now you will have seen that if you follow all of them. Nice little chopper ride with a bunch of buddies. I didn't get a ton of footage filming. Typically, I'm not going to go out and film stuff while I'm riding. Dottie was sitting cupcake on here, and I gave her the GoPro and let her go to town. So however I edited that, hopefully it looked cool. But good time, good people. Support your local friends, right? I couldn't be doing any of this without them. I help them out whenever I can. It's how that works. So back to the stupid ironhead. I know this is kind of a long-winded ramble. We're all over the place, but there's a lot of things going on. Here's kind of where we're at. It's leaking oil like crazy. Still. So that rear head's coming off again. I did a rush job on it. I went through, I picked up the gaskets, cleaned everything up on there, scraped everything. Still leaking like a sieve. So we're gonna yank that apart and we're gonna do a real close look at the rocker plate. I'll probably put it on some, it definitely has a slight drip out of the front rocker shaft that I didn't notice before, but while I was riding this, I could see the oil kind of running down this way. And then for the most part, all of it's in the back over here. It's like this back rear corner is still leaking. So we'll put that on some sandpaper on a nice flat surface and kind of flatten both of those out. I don't know if it's the chrome rocker that's flaking that's causing the leak, but it's leaking way, I mean, come on. I'm all for a leaky bike most of the time, but not like this. This thing's just pouring gas or oil. You can see it over here. The whole primary's covered. While this thing's running and riding, you get a nice drip down the rockers over here. So rear head's coming off once again. I'm pretty confident in the mag timing, but when I pulled the intake and carb off, this boot has 100% seen better days. I don't think I'm getting a very good seal on here. It's cracked. The rib on here that's supposed to retain itself on the intake and the carb is absolutely shot. And this thing is leaking. Now, also, next thing I found out while this is all apart, carb and intake are off. So if I put my foot on the kicker or put my hand over the intake and kick through this right now, ignition's off, but I get a lot of suction on the intake pull. So right now we're coming up on compression, but there's the suction part. If I plug this, in theory, it should be a relatively tight seal. Like it should suction cup my hand in and hold in. Let's see if this will show up on camera. Kicking through. It'll build vacuum and hold, but you can hear air escaping. I don't know if that's gonna show up, but if I kick through and hold my hand over this, it'll hold suction, but I can literally hear the air. So it's kick, kick, tss, kick, kick, tss, which tells me intake leak. As well as this is sealed, I did reuse the old rubbers. They were still soft, but we got a leak somewhere in here. I know it's gonna bleed off a little bit of pressure through the weakest link, wherever that may be, but I think that's probably got a ton intake leak. When I sprayed it with brake clean, it didn't change the idle drastically, but there's something leaking here, which I think is probably a big part of the hard starting issue. With the plugs in, I'm gonna do this again. You gotta figure out where that's leaking down from. So a little bit of leak down there. That's gonna wind this one up. I'm not gonna do any wrenching on this. I'm not gonna walk you through the whole head tear down until I get that rear head apart, and then we'll take a closer look at everything together. So I'll do a video on just that rear rocker once I get everything blasted apart again. But the next time you see this bike, it's gonna be completely disassembled. That'll give me a couple days to clean up the other carburetor too. It's also a Mikuni, so we're gonna keep the Mikunis. In terms of running an accelerator pump, I think it's gonna be a lot easier, but I know for a fact, I've been around enough of these, I've seen enough people running the Mikunis. When you have a dialed Mikuni on an old ironhead, people swear by it. In my opinion, they're 1-2 kicker bikes. I wanna go through the motions and get that tuned and dialed and set up. My buddy Andy that put on that chopper ride the other day had one. He had a 1-2 kick bike all day long on a Mikuni setup. Same VM. Wasn't a mag, but either way, the mag's sparking. I know we're kind of good on that. And we got spark. We definitely have compression now. It's gotta be something on either the carb or the intake track. I've retimed this a couple different ways. Worst case scenario, once I get everything slapped back together, we can probably pull a little bit and retard the timing a hair more, but I shouldn't really have to. I know, I'm very confident in how that was set up, unless there's something internally wrong in the mag, but I'm getting a nice bright blue spark. It's not like a yellow, it's hot white spark, white blue spark. I think that's good. It's just a matter of, one, getting this carb, make sure this is completely dialed, and two, figuring out that intake leak. So before I go any further on this, I want to address that, try and get a little bit more section where it's going to retain and be able to kick over that bike, have it suck my hand into the intake, and then I know it's not going to be a perfect hold depending on where it is in the stroke, but with how much air I can hear bleeding off of there, there's something wrong. So we're going to throw fresh intake gaskets in, since all of that has to come out anyway. And I'm rambling. So lots of oddball little updates. I appreciate all of the feedback in the comments. Apparently you guys like this crusty old chopper series. So maybe we'll keep an eye out and keep doing more of these, because these are my favorite too, I'm not going to lie. I like my fleet of stuff. I like going through things and getting them done. That was one of the most fun bikes I ever built, since pretty much everything on that was fabbed up, or I can tell you where it came from. This was a fun, different project after doing a handful of choppers, going back to a stocker, and this has been my road horse first big twin that I'll have forever. The second owner on this beautiful 79 Super Glide. I was gonna chop it when I bought it, and then the original owner dropped off a bunch of stuff, and now that's where that sits. So ironheads are nice and fun. They're easy to keep, flip. I haven't decided what we're doing yet. We're coming up on winter, which is not the best time to sell, but I also want to get some actual miles on this. I will say, riding this bike around, for how long it is, it rides down the road amazing. The rake and trail on this feels pretty solid. I'm not the biggest fan of the bars on here. I'm not a huge apes guy. I like these, but these aren't that tall. This is a little excessive, and I've tried retorquing these 3 or 4 times. These will not hold. Need some knurling or some sanding or something in between to clamp these bars down if I keep it that way. But I do have other bars that I think are gonna go on this. And then really, I mean, this bike does not take a lot to clean this up and have this looking good and proper like a nice finished chopper. But where's the fun in that? I like the crusty stuff. It looks like it just came out of a barn, but I want it to run good. So thanks for watching. Hope you made it through this long-winded rant. Again, if you're looking for any of the merch stuff, hats, shirts, post it in the comments, and I'll get back to you with how to get any of that if you're interested. If not, I'll let you guys know when the store is up and going. I appreciate it. Wouldn't be out here doing it without all of your guys' feedback. We will catch you tomorrow. Well, just to wrap this one up, I thought I was done with just a rambling rant, but 15 minutes later, we got the cylinder head off. Head gasket looks good. Here's the freshly bored cylinders. These look much better than the last time I showed you this. And I was doing a couple little tests, kicking this over, holding over this front cylinder. And if I kick this over, it will actually hold the fatty part of my palm into the cylinder much stronger than the intake did before. So we're gonna do a deep dive on this rear head. I think I'm actually gonna pull the valves out and cut the seat, just because I'm taking this off for a second time. And then tomorrow we'll yank this rocker gasket off and try and figure out where the hell this thing's leaking from. I don't know, I don't think it's a push rod. These are brand new corks. In here, there's a little bit of oil past it, but I don't know how much of that is just overflow. And I don't think it was the head. This should all be fresh. But if you look up here on this back corner, this is the back corner, it's soaked down here. Doesn't look like it's been running down. Looks like it's just not sealing right here on this gasket area, so I don't know. We'll get the rocker off and relook. We'll put a straight edge across that and see how well silicone does. I don't like doing them that way, but I'm also not going to pay to get the heads machined because we're cheap. So that's where we're at on this one. We'll catch you guys tomorrow when we rip the rocker apart, or rocker box off, and take a close look at this head. I think at this juncture, I don't have any sealing issues. It's not smoking. I'm gonna leave the front head alone, and we're only gonna address the issues on this. But while this is apart, I think we might actually do a quick valve lapping cleanup on this once I get the rockers off. I'm not positive on that part. We're 100% changing the rocker gasket, but I'd like to rule out all variables. As of this point, I'm really leaning towards an intake leak on that rubber boot. We'll see what comes about tomorrow. See you then.